When we think about what God did on day 2 of creation, we can see that God was keeping the earth at a certain temperature. God did not do this because he was bored. Instead, the earth's temperature will dictate much about what happens next. And God was preparing the earth to be capable to be inhabited by other creation like human beings, plants, and animals. In other words, God ensured that the atmosphere was just right for the next phase of creation. The more that I learn about how God created the earth and prepared it each day for what was to come next, it fascinates me just how wonderful our Creator is. Further, the more that I learn about how great God is, the more it fascinates me that people are more interested in learning about God's creation week as God's greatness was on full display. From Charles Spurgeon, the firmament, an expanse of air in which floated the waters, which afterwards condensed and fell upon the earth in refreshing showers. These waters above were divided from the waters below. Perhaps they were all one steamy conglomeration before, but now they are separated. Note those 4 words, and it was so. Whatever God ordains always comes. You will find that it is true of all his promises that, whatever he has said, shall be fulfilled to you, and you shall one day say of it all, and it was so. It is equally certain concerning all his threatenings that what he has spoken shall certainly be fulfilled, and the ungodly will have to say, and it was so. These words are often repeated in this chapter. They convey to us the great lesson that the Word of God is sure to be followed by the deed of God. He speaks, and it is done. The 3rd day of God's creation week continued with God further adding to his creation by bringing forth earth, sea, and vegetation. It's important to remember that God is the architect of all things, including human and animal lives as well as nature, and like a good architect, God did not cut any corners. In fact, God created the earth in such a way that all life is sustainable, which was on full display during the 3rd day of creation. For example, on day 3 of creation, God began preparing the earth for human and animal creation that would come later. On day 3, just as God had done in the previous 2 days, he spoke his work into existence, land, sea, and plants. This was no small feat, as all living creatures were in need of one or more of these substances, just as we are today. But perhaps an even more interesting thought is when God created the plants. They were already fully grown. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. Genesis 1 verse 9. Genesis chapter 1 verse 9 explains how God continued to add detail and order to his creation. An important detail to keep in mind of the first 3 days of creation is each day's work is preparing for something to come in the corresponding days. Again, this is God being a good architect by covering all avenues and potential problems rather than taking the easy way out and cut corners, which is obvious when God separated the land from the ocean and the water gathers to one place. The bigger picture of this verse is that God commands. What God says is so, as we see with the rest of creation, whether it's the first week of creation or our current time in history. When God spoke for the first time in verse 3, there was light, just as God spoke here on God 3, and the earth, sea, and vegetation came into place as they were meant to be. While this would seem to be a full day, God was not finished, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 1 verse 10. The first few days of creation are teaching moments, as God does not change. And this is true whether it's the creation week or our current time in history. God is many things, especially consistent, so much so that the patterns used by God on each of the first 3 days are nearly identical as God created something, named it, observed it, and witnessed that his creation was good. When God considers something good, it's not the same as man's, as there is no bad in something God considers good. An important lesson learned while researching this particular point of creation is Hebrew. Tradition states naming something gives the namer responsibility over what's being named. Therefore, because God named the dry land and the water, the earth, and the seas, God has all responsibility and rule over them, which is a perfect illustration of God's creation coming into place and being truly good. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. Genesis 1 verse 11.